Welcome to Ruck N Roll Season 3, where you get the best rugby analysis in the country. We're talking about the school's rugby season, and we have, of course, the knockout tournament to look back upon, and we have the big fixtures from the upcoming first week of school's rugby action to look forward to as well. But let's analyze the groups first on Ruck N Roll with my good friend joining us once again for Season 3, Abdullah Yusuf. Abdullah, as a Royal captain, it might be a little bit of a difficult topic to start off the show with, but let's talk about that knockout final. 58 points to 26. Nobody expected that. I don't think even Trinity expected to win so handsomely against Royal. But what did you make of the game?
Yes, I thought Trinity was just absolutely outstanding on the day, Shanaka. Yes, Trinity probably went into that game as favourites, but I think that the performance on the day just took everyone by surprise. I thought tactically they were really good. Their kicking game was outstanding. They used their options at 9, 10 and 15 extremely well. And also it was the variety of their kicks. I thought they did use the chip well. They used the cross kick. And in that first half, when they were playing with the wind, they did kick deep. So they just kept that Royal back three guessing. And I thought tactically they played it very smart, because up until the semi-final, I thought Royal's defense was outstanding. That first line of defense, they were using the rush defense extremely well and basically throttling the other team's attack. But Trinity, they had the class, they had the skill, and the execution on the day in terms of their kicking game was brilliant, which also rubbed off on the other aspects of the game from there on.
Yeah, it really was an outstanding performance in terms of skill execution. Not something we see too often in schoolboy rugby, is it, Abdullah?
Yes, I think the maturity of this Trinity team was striking, isn't it? I think they have, if I'm not mistaken, 11 to 12 players who were part of the league-winning team last season. So there's a lot of experience there, a lot of players who know how to win. So I think that performance to me showed that they're definitely going to be the team to beat this season.
Has it also put a target on their back, though? Are they going to go out there and get absolutely mauled up front? Our team's going to try everything they possibly can to nullify the Trinitians?
Yes, they're definitely going to have that X on their back from now on. But then again, they also have the experience to cope with that, and the class as well. So yes, they're going to find some teams, but there are a few teams who can cause them problems as the season goes on. But they definitely have the cattle to withstand that kind of pressure and come out on top.
Yes, so that was a really impressive performance from Trinity. We'll have a look at how Trinity fared in that knockout final. And of course, there are a few other teams that did really well. We had Wesley, St. Peter's, and a couple of other teams, Ananda, Lumbini, all these guys that might really take a few scalps when it comes to the league season. We'll take a look in more detail at how Trinity fared on the day when Abid looks at the Fondre Future 15 later on in this Ruck N Roll segment as well. So let's have a look at the groups. That's what everyone's talking about now. We don't have any rugby to really talk about, but let's look at the groups and how they pan out in this school's rugby league. Group 1A, we have the champions, Trinity College, against the semi-finalists Isipatana, then DS, Sri Sumangala, St. Anthony's and Lumbini. Group 2A, we have Wesley College, St. Peter's College, who played off that brilliant quarter-final game in the knockout tournament. St. Joseph's also, who came back from the brink against Kingswood, Ananda, Mahanama, Prince of Wales. And Group 3A, we have the two traditional rivals, Royal and St. Thomas's, Kingswood, Zahira, Thurston and Science, all very close run things, Abdullah.
So just looking at the groups, the way it has been lined up, I think in Group 1A, you'd have to say Trinity and Isipatana pretty much look the favourites to go through there. DS do have the ability to probably cause an upset, maybe against Isipatana, and of course don't write Sri Sumangala off as well. I thought there were aspects of their game that could worry certain teams in that group, but on the whole you'd probably say Trinity and Isipatana to go through from Group 1A.
I'm not sure I completely agree with you, Abdullah. I think DS and Sri Sumangala will have real designs on number 2. Because I think Trinity College are way ahead. They will probably get through in that group. But Isipatana, they haven't really given me a convincing performance yet. I'm sure they're going to come through. But still, on what we've seen so far, DS and Sri Sumangala really do have the goods, I think, to maybe to really create an upset in Group 1A. And if they do create an upset by beating somebody above them, that means that there's a door open for DS to get through as well.
Yeah, that's right. They do have the players in their armor. If you look at DS Senanayake as well as Sri Sumangala, they have got some big forwards. So, for instance, a game against Isipatana, if they manage to control possession and just keep their discipline, which I think probably let both those teams down in their quarterfinal games. If they can just continue to do that, then there's a chance that they could cause some problems for Isipatana as well. And of course, don't write off St. Anthony's. They had a pretty tough loss against Royal in that pre-quarter final, but in Kandy, they could turn out to be a completely different proposition.
Absolutely, and let's not write off Lumbini as well. Already some silverware under their belt, so they're going to be a very interesting proposition too. Let's move to Group 2A, and then we have Wesley College taking on St. Peter's College. We've already seen these two teams against each other. Looks like I am more convinced that these two teams will convince from this group, Abdullah. St. Joseph's, I don't think they've got the goods. Ananda might be able to get close for 60 minutes, but I don't think they're a 70-minute team quite as yet. They've got some very good individual players, but I don't know whether they're a 70-minute team. And then we got Mahanama and Prince of Wales as well.
Yeah, that's right. I think, as you very clearly said, Shanaka, this is a bit more clear-cut, isn't it? St. Peter's and Wesley both have a lot of quality in their team. And that match in that quarterfinal between those two schools was probably one of the better games in that knockout competition. So I think it's fair to say that those two teams are favorites to go through to that cup segment from the Group 2A.
And let's look at Group 3A. We have Royal College taking on St. Thomas's College between 1 and 2. Then, of course, Kingswood. And a team that is really champing at the bit. The team that really wants to go under the radar and announce themselves is Zahira College, Abdullah. And then you've got Thurston and Science, of course, who have been decimated by a few injuries and losses of players. But looking at Zahira there to really spring an upset.
Yeah, for me, of course, this is the real group which has a lot of intrigue to it. If you just take St. Thomas's, Kingswood, Zahira, Ideate back Royal to make it through to the next round, I think there could be some real competition between those three teams. Because don't write Kingswood off as well. I thought they've been through a bit of a hard time, but you could see that they have been gradually building over the last few years. And also, interestingly, I think there are 3 games against Royal, Zahira, as well as St. Thomas's will be up in Kandy.
Absolutely.
So there can be a really different proposition when they're playing at home as against when they're playing in Colombo. So I think that group is going to be really close and really tight. As you said, Zahira, yes, they're probably the team that ran Trinity closest in that knockout. I think they're leading at halftime even in that quarterfinal. So they too have the ability to spring a surprise or two. So I think that group is going to be one to watch out for.
Yeah, it really is going to be, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of action at the bottom end of those tables as well. Nobody wants to finish dead last, and I don't think any of the teams have the quality to deserve to be last in those teams either. So everyone's going to want to finish a little bit above where everyone's anticipating they would. So that's going to be a really make for a really interesting group season as well, because often you have lopsided games in this part of the season. Abdullah, I don't think we'll see as many.
Yes, we won't. And also what's good about this format is every single team, they have opportunity to play. So even the lesser teams, although they may not be able to compete against the top teams in that first round, if once they go to the next round, they'll probably find teams which of equal ability and equal skill and equal physicality.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good structure that they have come up with, and more importantly, all teams will get the maximum amount of matches to play, which is good to say at school level.
Well, let's see how that goes, guys, because ultimately we're looking forward to produce players for the Sri Lanka team. But let's look at the future of the immediate future, where we have the fixtures coming up for round 1 of the school's rugby league. Everyone has been waiting for. We have Wesley taking on Prince of Wales in a top versus bottom clash there in Group 2, where we have DS taking on Sri Sumangala, which I think is going to be one of the pick of the games this season. St. Peter's versus Mahanama, Ananda taking on St. Joseph's. That could be a close match as well. And St. Thomas's, Thurston, don't write off Thurston, but of course St. Thomas is hosting them in Mount Lavinia, so they'll be favourites.
Yeah, that's right. All those games will probably go a bit close at the start of the season, because yet it's pretty much the early part of it. But there are some clear favourites who will probably emerge from that. And as you said, probably the 2 games to watch out for from this particular list will be DS versus Sri Sumangala, and of course Ananda taking on St. Joseph's.
So that's the fixtures for week number 1. And then we have Trinity College taking on Lumbini. That's going to be an interesting clash. You've got two silverware winners already. We got Kingswood taking on Zahira, which I think is going to be an absolute humdinger of a game. Both teams like to run the ball, and both teams not as big, Abdullah, so they don't really have that forwards grind to rely on. And then Isipatana taking on St. Anthony's, Royal taking on Science. You'd think that Isipatana and Royal were favourites.
Yes, both of them playing in their home conditions as well, so they'll be clear favourites. But as you said, probably the pick of the game for the entire first week of that schools league will be the game between Kingswood and Zahira.
Mm-hmm. So going to be lots to look forward to, guys, as week one looms, and it's going to be a super weekend for rugby as well, because we have Sri Lanka taking on the New Zealand under-85s. We'll be talking to Mr. Jamie Wall, our good friend from New Zealand, in the Vantage Point segment of Ruck N Roll Season 3 upcoming. But thanks very much, Abdullah, for looking forward to the week one's fixtures. We'll have a lot to talk about when we come back next week.
Sure, Shanaka.